This is a description of the structure of civil society under the militia money regime. The most important thing to understand about this structure is that property rights are founded on militia money, and civil society is founded upon property rights. Property rights are different from just property. For example, an individual might have a homestead that that individual protects with his individual force against other individuals that have the capacity to engage in individual force. But that is a state of nature where individuals can be engaging in combat with other individuals for the vital requirements of life, their property. That's their natural property. Property rights are a social construct. The construction is built upon the exchange of money. Money precedes property rights in the sense that even without a notion of a formal society, societies generally have various means of exchanges, say shells or other kinds of things that are rare, that they can use to engage in trade. But that itself doesn't constitute property rights in the formal sense that's required for civil society. So, regardless of what kind of civil society you want, and this is true even of communist societies, they all have property rights of one form or another. In the case of communism, the property rights are in the form of various legal agreements that they have established between, say, the Central Politburo and various autonomous regions or so-called autonomous regions. And if you get into a theocracy, then you have various rights that are accorded by the theocracy in the constitutional republics, supposedly the United States. Then you have a variety of laws or the Constitution that then provides you with various ways of enforcing property rights that are ultimately held by individuals. But whether or not the civil society defines a fiat currency or a form of currency that is dependent upon the civil society, there is going to be some kind of money. And what militia money does is say, fine, what we really need to do is we need to make it so that individuals have a choice of what kind of civil society they want to live in. And the way you do that is by getting it, making the fiat currency go straight into the hands of the young men that enforce property rights. Whenever there's new money that is minted because of the fact that the civil society is growing and therefore the number of property rights are expanding, then that money goes straight into the pockets of the individual men who are defending property rights from theft or vandalism or whatever. And that is the militia money. Militia money expands along with the property rights to represent the property rights that are recognized by civil society of whatever form. And as it expands, it doesn't filter down through any kind of political or banking or business hierarchy to the flesh, blood, and bone individuals that protect property rights. That money goes straight into the pockets of those individual able bodied men. In the case of militia money, at present, that is defined as draft age men. Sex is important to understand as the foundation for individual organisms going back 600 million years. Violation of sex by civil society is a way of subverting the individual so that civil society can try to form itself into superorganisms the way the social insects do. This is not geared toward people who want to have an insect like society. It's geared toward people who want to empower the individual and protect the individual. But this has to start with protecting the individual's ability to choose the kind of civil society in which they want to live. And they can do that by using monetary authority that is directly into their pockets to go out and say, purchase territory with other individuals to form their own kind of civil society that they want. And this doesn't necessarily get away from the idea that you'll have, say, military conflict, but it's going to mitigate the need for military conflict because of the fact that they now have money in their pocket with which they can at least rent land, on which they can at least raise food, or on which from which they can get calories of some kind to feed their children and attract a mate. So this is the basic idea. You don't have a restriction on what kind of civil society you want to construct. You only have a restriction on the way new money enters into the system based upon the expansion of whatever property rights regime you believe you want to protect. Now, militia money is based on something called property money that has a very clear and strict definition about how properties are valued and how money comes into and goes out of existence. But the whole idea here I'm trying to get across is simply that you have individual able-bodied men that are the recipients of the what might be called the positive network externalities of civil society that results in an expansion of the economy. And as it expands, that money is distributed to them instead of going through, say, the Federal Reserve or any kind of political system or any kind of banking system. The individual men can choose to deliver social goods, or they can choose to set up a banking system, or they can choose to set up a government. They can choose to set up all kinds of different structures based on corporations that are essentially operating as private entities. And then, if there is an ultimate need for force, yes, there may be war, there may be even individual conflict, but it is mitigated by virtue of the fact that the individual able bodied men are not put in a position where they're essentially enslaved to a top down hierarchy that is outbidding them for the fertile years of young women.